All right, everyone. Twice during the semester, I'm going to require you to do a current event breakdown. This is a short 2 to 3 page paper, each of them are, so you're going to do between 4 and 6 pages of writing total for these assignments. And that's in normal double space 12-point font. And in this assignment, you're going to compare different news outlets and how they cover a specific news event. So, what you're going to do is select something happening in the world, some exciting news event, say the Strait of Hormuz opens, right? And then on the rubric here, you're going to go to the Add Fonts Media Bias chart. And what you're going to do here is you're going to go through all of these news sources and you're going to choose 5 of them, okay? You're going to choose one that's on the hyperpartisan left, one that's kind of strongly left or skews left, one that's in the middle, one that skews right or on the strong right, one that's on the hyperpartisan right. And you just have to choose 5 total, okay? That's one from each of those, sections. So say I wanted to do the Jimmy Dore show here, and then kind of the skews left, say I choose, it looks like New York Magazine's in here. In the middle, I'll choose the Wall Street Journal. On the right, let's choose something from Fox News. And on the hyperpartisan right, I'm going to listen to Dave Rubin. And all of them are covering that story you selected on the Strait of Hormuz. There's an article or a podcast from each of them. You're going to listen to those articles. And then what you're going to do is write your paper on it. And I have written out here what I think you should structure your paper as. So first, you're going to do a neutral event brief. That's 1 paragraph. You're going to provide only the context needed for the comparison. You're not supposed to editorialize here. So essentially say what happened. And you're going to see that there's some overlap, particularly with your middle-of-the-road source that you choose. So in that paragraph, I'm going to say, the Strait of Hormuz opened on X date. I'm recording this at the end of August. Say it opens on September 23rd, 2026. After negotiations between President Donald Trump of the United States and the Iranian government reached a final conclusion. The terms of the agreement were A, B, C, and D. That's all I need from you in that. Then the core of your paper, the meat and potatoes, should be this critical comparison. And in that, you are going to analyze together, rather than presenting 5 separate summaries, what these articles are saying. So in the past, I've had students do this incorrectly. They submit a neutral event brief memo, and then they go source by source. They'll say, on the far right, Dave Rubin says this about this. And in the middle, the Wall Street Journal says this about this. And on the far right, Jimmy Dore says this about this. I don't want you to do that. I want you to actually analyze, rather than synthesize, what is happening in each of these news sources. So the way that I would do that is I would say, diction on the far right tends to be far more praiseful of Donald Trump's handling of this situation, getting us out of a foreign conflict. Maybe they emphasize more along the lines of him living up to original campaign pledges he might have seemingly abandoned by entering into a war with Iran. On the left side, perhaps, you notice that they are more critical of the substance of the agreement, say that this is just a stopgap measure rather than an actual final agreement to end the Iranian war. Again, I'm just speculating about a hypothetical article here, but you can focus on these things, the words that these sources use, how they discuss these things, how much they editorialize themselves. Are they merely reporting what's happening? Perhaps the Wall Street Journal source is really boring to read because it just says what happens, X, Y, and Z, kind of like you do in your neutral event brief. Or maybe they actually go in and editorialize a little bit, talking about these things, whether or not it was normatively good or normatively bad for the Strait of Hormuz to open in this way. And then finally, I want you to just have a brief conclusion, because it's important to wrap up your ideas. You only need 1 or 2 sentences for this. You state the most important pattern, the most important takeaway. It's kind of your mic drop for the paper. And you don't want to inject your own political opinion. Note that throughout this entire assignment, both of them that you're going to submit, you should not be injecting your own political opinions into these assignments. You're talking about, 1, the event in a neutral way, and 2, how these different media sources inject their own political opinions into the news. I want you to note that for all of your writing assignments, you don't have a lot of room in this class. There's 100 of you, I have to grade all of that, and also you have a bunch of other classes, and you don't want to spend all of your time working on something, particularly if you're a non-major. So when I say that you have to write a 2 to 3 page paper, I mean it should be no shorter than 2 full pages. That's top to bottom, double space, 12-point font, no gimmicks, don't add extra space between your paragraphs. Make sure you check off that option on your word processor, whether that's Google Docs or Microsoft Word. Don't do anything to try to stretch it out, because 2 pages really isn't that far to write. But also, that should be no longer than 3 full pages top to bottom. 2.5 pages, fine. 2 pages in a single line, fine. 2 3/4 pages, fine. 3 pages in a single line, that's too much, all right? 2 to 3 pages. Write parsimoniously. Write simply. You should express your ideas with clarity, precision, and an economy of words. And this isn't just something that some jerk professor of yours is requiring you to do. This is something that all of you are probably going to have to do on a day-to-day basis in the professional world. You're going to have specific limitations on what you guys have to do when you're producing written work for a job or perhaps some kind of report for your boss. So follow those instructions to a T. Also, everything you submit to me in writing, meaning your current event briefing memos, meaning your major area briefing memo, they should always have a bibliography. I don't care what citation style you use. I have links on how to do different citation styles through Purdue's online writing lab in the Basecamp module on the class, as long as you're consistent. So if you're a history major, by all means, use Chicago. If you do use Chicago, I'd prefer endnotes than footnotes. If you are a psych major, use APA. If you're an English major, use MLA, or just use MLA because that's what you were exposed to in high school. I don't care, as long as it is consistent, and that includes using both in-text citations as well as citations at the end. So that's a bibliography at the end. Again, Purdue Online Writing Lab has examples of how you can do these different citation styles. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me before the due date, at least a week and a half or 2 weeks before the due date, so that I can walk through how you might want to do this. So, pacing and submission, how is this going to work? Well, you're going to submit it through the submission portal in the Basecamp module on the Blackboard. Your breakdown 1 is due on October 12th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m., as is everything else in the first half of the course. That said, I would not wait to submit until October 12th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m., because you're going to have a lot of other things to submit. Therefore, I provide a recommended target. You should sort of try to submit by September 22nd. That'd be a really great target to shoot for, because that'd give you ample time to prepare for the midterm and get the other module work in. Your second breakdown in that vein is also due at the end when part 2 is due for the entire class. That's December 9th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. Do not wait until December 9th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. to submit it. Please try to submit it by the target date of October 27th, 2026. That gives me time to grade it, that gives you time to study for the final, and everybody's happy there. As I note, the recommended dates here are pacing targets, not grade deadlines. No late penalty applies before the corresponding firm deadline. Late penalty for this class is simply a 0 unless you talk to me and we have some kind of accommodation through the Student Disability Office or Ombud's office. I am hard and firm on how you submit your papers. You must submit it as a Microsoft Word, that's a .docx file, or a PDF file through the Blackboard submission portal. Please do not send me some weird link to OneDrive. Please do not send me some weird link to a Google Drive. It is so hard for me to access and comment on your files. So just download a .docx file to your computer locally and submit it that way, or download a .pdf file to your computer locally and submit it that way. It's very, very simple. Work not submitted by the applicable deadline receives a 0 unless documented accommodation, university excused circumstances, or prior written arrangement with the instructor applies. Note that. All right, so we're getting to the fun part with generative AI. I know all of you are going to use AI in some way, shape, or form. Just please don't use it like morons. You don't use generative AI to produce your assignment whole cloth. I don't want to read ChatGPT's. I can tell it's ChatGPT's. You're going to have to make a strong argument for me if I accuse you of using ChatGPT that it isn't ChatGPT, or Claude, because that's better, I suppose, now, or DeepSeek, if you feel like having your data stolen by China. What I recommend you do is use strong AI tools to help with research if you want, like NotebookLM through Google, or ResearchRabbit. Or if you must use generative AI because you, for instance, don't have any friends to peer review your work, you should write a slop draft and then have it edit it for copying mistakes, get rid of passive voice, etc. That is the only acceptable use of AI for this assignment. On the second page of this, and I'm not going to go through this in high detail, is the tabular rubric for this assignment. You'll see that I have 3 columns here. Excellent, which is basically the top 1, 2, or 3 points available within the rubric. Satisfactory, which is a broader range, and needs improvement, which basically means, hey, if you get needs improvement in every category, you're probably going to fail the assignment. This rubric not only is available through this rubric file in the rubric file folders under Basecamp, it is also available on the assignments itself, and it is available in Blackboard format. You can actually see it on Blackboard integrated into the classroom so that you guys can make sure you read this, okay? If you guys read the rubric and you read the instructions, there is no reason everyone in this class shouldn't at least get an A in this assignment. The idea is for it to be relatively unobtrusive and for you to focus on what's going on in the world. This is an election year. You guys should be able to find something interesting to talk about, and I look forward to seeing what you guys decide to talk about for this assignment. Thank you so much, and please follow these instructions.